Did you know that 60% of Americans view Israel favorably, while U.S. aid to Israel surpasses $3.8 billion annually? This alliance isn't just a matter of foreign policy, it's a core issue influencing American politics. As we approach the critical 2024 elections, U.S.-Israel relations are under the microscope, dividing opinions and reshaping strategies for candidates. With an electorate increasingly polarized, how will America's steadfast support for Israel impact the race for the White House? Let's explore. U.S. support for Israel has long been framed as a cornerstone of its foreign policy, celebrated for its strategic importance and deep-rooted historical ties. From bipartisan commitments in Congress to public displays of solidarity, this alliance is often described as ironclad. But in 2024, this seemingly untouchable relationship is becoming a key electoral issue. 1. On one hand, unwavering support for Israel is seen as a vital stance for maintaining stability in the Middle East. 1. It's backed by a coalition of strong political lobbies, evangelical voters, and national security advocates. 1. On the other hand, rising critiques, especially among younger voters, progressives, and human rights groups, are calling for a re-evaluation of America's role, particularly in light of controversial policies in the Israel-Palestine conflict. This topic isn't just a geopolitical concern anymore. It's a political battleground that could sway key voter demographics, influence campaign messaging, and ultimately, define the next president's foreign policy agenda. A growing divide. The U.S.-Israel relationship is becoming increasingly divisive, with the country split on how to handle this long-standing alliance. The central challenge lies in navigating the public opinion shift. 1. Generational divide. Younger Americans are increasingly critical of Israel's policies, with polls showing that nearly half of millennials and Gen Z favor a more balanced approach that includes Palestinian rights. 1. Partisan tensions. Among Republicans, support for Israel remains strong, with over 70% backing it unconditionally. 1. In contrast, only about 34% of Democrats share the same sentiment, reflecting a growing divide in how the two parties view this relationship. 1. Human rights concerns. Reports from organizations like Human Rights Watch have labeled some of Israel's actions as violations of international law, sparking debates over the ethics of U.S. aid and foreign policy. Political ramifications. 1. Republicans. Candidates see support for Israel as a rallying point to energize their base, emphasizing national security and shared values. 1. Democrats. The party is deeply divided, with moderates advocating continued support while progressives push for conditional aid tied to human rights benchmarks. 1. This division risks alienating both pro-Israel donors and grassroots activists. Global perception. 1. The U.S.'s unflinching support for Israel has led to criticism from international allies and adversaries alike, with many questioning its neutrality in the Middle East. 1. Balancing these criticisms while maintaining the alliance adds another layer of complexity for candidates on the global stage. This growing divide isn't just about foreign policy, it's a mirror reflecting the ideological and cultural shifts happening within America itself. The forces shaping 2024. To understand how U.S. support for Israel impacts the elections, we must examine the forces at play, party platforms and candidate strategies. 1. Republicans. 1. Candidates like Donald Trump tout their pro-Israel achievements, such as recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and brokering the Abraham Accords. 1. Their rhetoric often frames Israel as a key ally in the fight against terrorism and a bastion of democracy in a volatile region. Democrats. 1. While President Biden and establishment figures emphasize a continuation of long-standing U.S.-Israel ties, progressive voices, including Bernie Sanders and members of the Squad, advocate for holding Israel accountable for its actions in the West Bank and Gaza. 1. This ideological split complicates the party's messaging, risking alienation of either pro-Israel voters or its progressive base. The evangelical voting bloc. 1. Evangelical Christians, who make up a significant portion of the Republican base, view Israel's existence as fulfilling biblical prophecy. 1. This belief drives unwavering support for Israel and shapes the foreign policy platforms of Republican candidates. 1. Any candidate hoping to secure this voting bloc must articulate a robust pro-Israel stance, making it a non-negotiable aspect of their campaign. Lobbying influence. 1. AIPAC's role. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee wields significant political influence, ensuring that candidates who support Israel receive funding and endorsements. 1. Progressive counter-lobbies. Groups like J Street are gaining traction, promoting a more balanced approach that supports a two-state solution and ties aid to peace-building measures. Recent events and global tensions. 1. The escalating violence in Gaza and the West Bank has reignited debates over the use of U.S. military aid. 1. Protests across U.S. campuses and cities highlight the growing grassroots opposition to unconditional support for Israel, pushing the issue into mainstream political discourse. These factors create a complex web of political, ideological, and moral considerations that candidates must navigate carefully. A defining moment. One recent event has brought this debate to a boiling point: the introduction of a congressional resolution calling for greater oversight of U.S. military aid to Israel. Republican response. 1. Candidates like Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley used the resolution as a rallying cry to reaffirm their staunch support for Israel, framing any criticism as un-American. 1. Trump, leveraging his prior decisions like moving the embassy to Jerusalem, doubled down on his pro-Israel credentials, presenting himself as Israel's most loyal ally. Democratic response. 1. Progressive leaders supported the resolution, emphasizing the need for accountability and tying aid to human rights conditions. 1. Moderates, however, distanced themselves, fearing backlash from pro-Israel voters and donors. 1. This internal tension underscored the Democratic Party's struggle to unify on this issue. This defining moment highlights the high stakes of the Israel question in 2024, shaping not only campaign narratives but also voter perceptions. The road ahead as the 2024 elections approach. The U.S.-Israel relationship is more than a foreign policy debate. It's a referendum on America's values, alliances, and role on the global stage. 1. For Republicans, support for Israel remains a clear-cut issue, solidifying their base and reinforcing their stance as the party of national security. 1. For Democrats, it's a more delicate balancing act, requiring candidates to navigate between their moderate supporters and a growing progressive movement demanding change. The outcome of this debate could redefine America's relationship with Israel, impact the trajectory of the Israel-Palestine conflict, and influence voter turnout across key demographics. But one thing is clear: U.S. support for Israel is not just a question for politicians, it's a conversation for all Americans, one that will echo far beyond the 2024 elections. Let your voice be heard. What do you think? Should America continue its unwavering support for Israel, or is it time for a more balanced approach? How do you see this issue influencing the 2024 elections? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our previous videos for more insights on U.S. foreign policy and election dynamics. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the stories shaping our world.